For generations, it's been the ultimate science fiction dream, right? Taking the cold, red desert of Mars and transforming it into this vibrant green and blue world. But what used to be pure fantasy, well, it's now becoming a very real and, let me tell you, a very complex scientific debate. So how close are we to this dream, really? And what would it actually take to pull it off? Just take a second and picture that. It's breathtaking, isn't it? Transforming those huge, dusty plains into deep blue oceans, covering all that crimson rock with sprawling green forests. And that, right there, is the whole idea behind terraforming. We're talking a planet-sized engineering project to make Mars a second Earth. But this isn't just about painting a pretty picture. It's about survival, it's about expansion, and maybe, just maybe, securing the future of humanity. And the wildest part? It's not just for novels anymore.
This quote just nails the shift we're seeing. I mean, for decades, terraforming was pure speculation, something you'd read about. So what changed? Well, a whole bunch of things kind of converged at once. We've got breakthroughs in synthetic biology to create pioneer organisms. We have advanced climate modeling that lets us literally simulate planetary change, and launch costs have dropped so dramatically that these huge, ambitious projects are suddenly becoming feasible. The whole conversation has moved from the impossible column to the, well, let's just say the very, very difficult column. So, if we're actually serious about living on Mars, we're at this fundamental fork in the road. Do we take on the colossal, almost unimaginable task of re-engineering an entire planet just to suit us? Or do we take the much more intimate, and maybe a much more controversial path of re-engineering ourselves to suit the planet? Okay, let's break these two ideas down. On one side, you've got terraforming. This is all about changing Mars's environment, its atmosphere, its temperature, its surface, to make it more like home. But on the other side, we have this completely different way of thinking, sometimes called Marsiforming humans. Get it? So instead of changing the planet for us, the idea is to change us for the planet. This would mean using incredibly advanced biomedical and genetic tools to adapt the human body so it can survive on Mars exactly as it is today. Now, that terraforming route, wow, it's a monumental, multi-generational project. The first phase alone would take decades, just warming the planet up, maybe with some engineered greenhouse gases to melt the polar ice caps and get liquid water flowing. Then, for decades more, we'd have to seed the planet with specially engineered microbes to start pumping out oxygen. But then you get to the final phase, creating a breathable atmosphere. And the timeline for that? We're not talking about our lifetimes or even our kids' lifetimes. This could take centuries, maybe even millennia. It's a project on a scale humanity has never, ever attempted before.
The other path, though, is to build a better astronaut. We could potentially use gene editing tools like CRISPR to give future Martians some unbelievable advantages. Just imagine humans with built-in resistance to cosmic radiation, bones that don't get brittle in lower gravity, a higher tolerance for that super-thin atmosphere. We'd basically be adapting ourselves to the environment instead of forcing the environment to adapt to us. It's a completely different way to think about colonization.
And this brings up a really fascinating ethical question. Back here on Earth, we'd probably call these changes human enhancement, and that's a whole can of worms. But think about it. In a hazardous environment like Mars, where stuff like radiation is literally deadly, are these modifications just a futuristic form of preventive medicine? The goal at the end of the day isn't to create superhumans for Earth, it's just to let people survive in a place we were absolutely not evolved to live. And this is where we get to the heart of the whole dilemma. Look, the technical challenges are immense. We know that. But the ethical ones, they might be even bigger. As we start moving from can we do this to how do we do this, we have to slam on the brakes and ask the most important question of all. Should we?
But hold on. Before we even think about changing Mars, we really have to appreciate what's already there. Thanks to our rovers, we know it is far from a blank canvas. It's a world of immense, totally alien beauty. It has geological wonders that absolutely dwarf anything on Earth, like the volcano Olympus Mods, or the Valles Marineris Canyon system, which is so big it would stretch all the way across the United States.
And that's the fundamental trade-off, isn't it? Terraforming, by its very nature, would wipe out this unique landscape forever. It would melt the ancient ice, it would flood the canyons, and it would just erase billions of years of planetary history. So you really have to ask, is creating a new home for us worth erasing the natural wonders of another world?
And beyond just destroying the landscape, some critics argue that the very ambition itself reveals a deep character flaw in us. This quote from Nautilus magazine frames it perfectly, pointing to that ancient Greek idea of hubris.
Hubris is that dangerous kind of overconfidence, right? The kind that makes us think we can play God, that we can define natural limits without any consequences. The argument here is that trying to control an entire planet's climate and geology is the ultimate act of hubris. I mean, what kind of unforeseen consequences could we possibly unleash? When you're messing with an entire world, the potential for catastrophic failure is just enormous.
And maybe this is the question that brings it all back down to Earth. It kind of points out a huge potential hypocrisy. How can we possibly justify trying to engineer a new atmosphere on Mars when we are struggling so badly to manage what we're doing to Earth's own atmosphere? It really suggests that maybe our focus should be right here at home.
But while we're all debating these huge philosophical questions, the very first practical steps, well, they're already being taken. The future isn't centuries away, it's literally happening right now, thanks to a little instrument on Mars that's about the size of a lunchbox.
So meet MOXIE. It is a brilliant piece of tech on the Perseverance rover, and its full name really says it all: the Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment. That key phrase, in situ resource utilization, is just a fancy way of saying living off the land. Using the resources that are already on another planet to survive. And MOXIE's whole job is to prove it can actually be done.
So how's it work? Well, MOXIE is basically a mechanical tree. It breathes in the Martian atmosphere, which is like 96% carbon dioxide, heats it up to about 800 degrees Celsius, and then uses a special electrochemical process to split those CO2 molecules apart. And what's left over? Pure, breathable oxygen. The mission has been a huge success. Through different seasons, day and night, it has reliably hit its target, producing about 6 grams of oxygen every single hour.
Now, I know what you're thinking. 6 grams an hour doesn't sound like a lot. But let's put that in perspective. That little box, 100 million miles away, is doing the work of a small tree right here on Earth. It is a tiny but absolutely incredible first breath for humanity on another world.
And we really can't overstate how big a deal this is. It is a historic first. This isn't a theory anymore. It's a real-world demonstration. For the very first time, humanity has taken raw materials from another planet and made something essential for our survival, whether that's oxygen for us to breathe or a component of rocket fuel to get us back home.
And what's so cool is that all this far future research has benefits for us right here, right now. The technologies we have to invent to keep people alive on Mars, like creating oxygen or building totally sustainable life support systems, while they could lead to major breakthroughs for us back on Earth, from new green tech to crops that can survive a drought.
So here we are, standing at this profound crossroads. The technology is moving so fast that the conversation has just fundamentally changed. It's no longer a question of, could we? The question now is, should we? And as we stand on the brink of becoming a multi-planetary species, the ultimate question isn't really about the technology in our hands, but about the wisdom in our hearts. Are we going to be explorers who adapt, or will we be conquerors who reshape? The choice we make is going to define not just the future of Mars, but the future of humanity itself.